Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bad Dog Comedy TV. It's improv comedy live on the internet, but tonight, a very special show of 5 Things with Alia Rasul.
Oh, hello. Welcome to 5 Things. I am your host, Alia Rasul. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the Bad Dog Theater Company is broadcasting from the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Last week, I shared an Al Jazeera featured article called Canada's Crying Shame about residential schools as part of my land acknowledgement. And you know what? I'm going to read it again because I think it's really important for us to remember, history as it happens. So here we go. So for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to be reading a part of this article, just a content warning that what I'm about to read contains upsetting themes around the trauma of residential schools. Okay. So the article reads, there were 139 residential schools attended by an estimated 150,000 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children in Canada. The first school opened in 1831 and the last one closed in 1996. The institutions intended to erode Indigenous culture, language, and family and community ties were notorious for the neglect and abuse of the children who were forced to attend them. Thousands of Indigenous children died at the schools with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada conservatively estimating 4,000 to 6,000 deaths. And actually, as of the last count, there's actually more than 7,000 so far. In 2009, the Canadian government turned down requests from the TRC for $1.5 million in funding to help identify the locations of burial sites of children at the formal residential school. So $1.5 million, anything with the word million sounds like a lot, but that's how much a house in downtown Toronto costs, so to put that into perspective. So some First Nations communities began using their own resources to hire specialists operating ground penetrating radar to find the graves. And at the end of May, they uncovered the remains of 215 children buried at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School in British Columbia. And like I said, the number is now at more than 7,000. So remember those numbers. And the best way to remember them is to pay attention and, repetition. Okay. So again, my name is Alia Rasul and welcome to the show. So this is 5 Things, and I'm going to be talking to some of my favorite people, some of the best and brightest stars in comedy, and we are going to dig into the stories, politics, and personality behind their jokes. We have some of my most famous friends, some of my tallest friends, humble brag, also potentially spoiler alert, or maybe not, because you know who the guest is today. It's on the title. Anyway, so make sure you hit like and or subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of the cool people that are coming on the show. 5 Things is based on an improv warm-up game, so let's warm up with a quick 5 things. Shannon, could you kindly provide a suggestion for 5 things that you might want to know about me?
Yeah, your 5 things you love to wear.
Ooh, 5 things that I love to wear. This toque. I love wearing this toque because I made it. And it says Tita Power, which means anti-power. And yeah, we love our ants. So represent. So that's 1. Number 2, I love to wear this sweater my dad had when I was like a child. So this sweater is almost as old as I am, and I stole it from my dad, and it is the coziest, most amazing thing that I own. or that I stole. Number 3, a scrunchie. Scrunchies are the best. they are very useful when you have very long hair and you're trying to eat a bowl of soup. Number 4, oh man, I wish I had it handy, but I bought this amazing sequined hairband. I've decided to forgo holiday wear this year, and I'm just wearing sequins on my hair because everything's on Zoom. We're going to lock down, and that's all you're going to see of me anyway. And number 5, I like to wear my heart on my sleeve. I can't hide how I'm feeling, which is why if I don't like you, you for sure know. But also if I love you, you also for sure know. So those are 5 things. There we go. So moving on, I am so excited to introduce tonight's guest. GULED Abdi is a Toronto-based comedian, writer, and one quarter of the multi-award winning sketch troupe Tall Boys, who are dropping season 3 of their sketch show on CBC this January 25th. And, you can catch all their previous seasons on CBC Gem. He's performed at Off JFL, Montreal Sketch Fest, and the Toronto Fringe Festival. And he is absolutely one of my most favorite people in the world. Let's welcome GULED.
Hey.
Hello.
What's going on?
How's it going, friend?
Doing all right, being at home and everything. It's really nice. I do love I love working at this desk, and then you can see in the background, like over here is my bed. So if things go bad, I just jump right into bed.
That's great. For me, this is my desk, and then like what you don't see is a bunch of food packaging that I haven't thrown out from all the Uber Eats I have been doing.
And listen, you've been doing your civic duty. You've been keeping the numbers down by ordering more Uber. And this is,
Yeah.
we're all going to get, like, I think, is it Purple Hearts? What do they do up here? What's the thing that you get for?
I'm pretty sure it's Purple Hearts.
It's
correct.
Purple Hearts. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I'm waiting for mine in the mail. So we'll see.
I have been keeping the economy afloat. That is one of the things that I'm really proud of.
No, that's great. I genuinely did feel stressed at the beginning, being like, there are too many businesses. I can't support them all. I really can't. I'm sorry.
GULED.
Yeah.
I think you can.
I could, but I would be stretching myself thin. I'd be so tired. And then I'd maybe get angry. When like you're tired and you're doing something, you're like, this is a good thing, but then you're so tired that you get cranky, and then you're like, oh, why did I do this to myself? I could have.
You know what, though? That is awesome, because one of the biggest things that a lot of people have said that they've learned from the pandemic is knowing their boundaries.
Ooh, that's a big word. And if you guys are paying attention at home, actually put down on your bingo card. That is one of the answers.
Yeah, you can't save all the businesses.
No.
You can save some of them, but your self-care comes first.
Exactly. If you're saving all the business, who's saving you from a mental breakdown? Think about it. You know what I'm saying?
Mic drop.
Boom. That's another one, actually. Making something that was that was actually very sweet, cheesy. Yeah, mark that down, guys. That's also the thing.
You've got another Purple Heart in the mail coming your way just for that.
Hell yeah.
Are you excited to talk about 5 things, and only 5 things? If I ask you a 6th thing, you let me know.
I will leave immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thing number 1. GULED, I'm going to talk about our age.
Absolutely.
Okay. So how's your mid-30s going? And the reason I bring this up is because, so we were born the same year. So we turned 30 the same year. We celebrated our 30th birthday together.
Huge.
I really feel like since then, we've been kind of like, it feels like you're my, like those pacing partners.
Yeah. Oh yes, yes, yes. I know what you mean. Yeah.
There's
Like
like a
when.
feeling of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
You
No,
know.
I know what you mean. I think I watched a clip about marathoners where they have the people to help them set pace. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. It also helps
Yeah,
break. I
because
think break the wind as well, so that they're not getting as much like wind resistance
that's true.
or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to, move through my 30s too quickly. So
No, no, no. Yeah, because then after that is the 40s.
I know.
I don't know what's there, but uh
Well,
it's honestly I think 30 was felt like really huge. And for the reasons that like you keep hearing people say 30 is so big. But and I did have that feeling like, oh no, like everything has to change. My name, the things I like this it's page one rewrite of my whole personality. Anyone I meet after 30 will meet a very different Gula than the one before 30. But
yup.
uh I've since like some of that anxiety is still there, but I've since given up on that because I had no like goals of like where I'd be in my 30s or by 30. So I'm like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. I stumbled upon this thing. It's going well. I get to do a TV show with my friends, being like, you know what? This is actually it was blank. It was blank and it got filled with stuff. And I'm like, this is good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, understatement of the year. Like, so yeah, I think like, well, in our 30s, uh, just to sort of paint a picture of what it was kind of like then, I remember just, well, you and then me eventually joining you, going to like stand up show after stand up show, and that was a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
like I don't think I remember you not even being sure that you wanted to do sketch.
Yes, and that feeling is still there. Uh,
Yay.
yeah, it's well, I think yeah, I felt this feeling throughout comedy. I've told like I've told the boys on several occasions, yeah, I'm gonna quit comedy. I've said that on several occasions. I remember being on one occasion was I think I was coming back from a show in the east end of town at the Social Capital Theater. Shout out to them. And I was telling them, I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling good. This is very hard. I think I'm gonna call it. And that feeling comes and goes in waves because I find when I'm like super exhausted and feeling just like, you know, like just I'm being like my patience is worn thin. I'm just so tired. I can't possibly be at my best in terms of like just mental health wise and also the work I'm creating. Then
Mhm.
those moments I'm like, man, I did I pick the wrong profession? Because then you got to still come and find that emotion, that feeling, and then being like, it starts at some points then feeling like a job, which it is a job. But I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be a cool job, and it is. But there's moments where I'm like, oh god, this feels like any other job.
Yeah, well, I mean that actually kind of segues, if not dovetails. Those are both corporate sounding things that mean nothing. But
Yeah.
anyway, all I'm trying to say is, thing number two was actually something we both talk about a lot, and it's like anxiety in doing comedy, which is exactly what you're touching on. Um, yeah, so I guess like tell me a little bit more of like about like, so I know you started stand up, and like from our conversations, like stand up is tough. And I've done stand up too. It is a rough gig.
Absolutely. Yeah, stand up it's the thing that I'm still like in the back of my mind. I'm like, I haven't done stand up in some time. I really respect people that do it. The people who are really good at it. It takes so much effort to feel comfortable up there. I remember one time Bill Burr talking about like when you step on stage for the first time, there's how you are with your friends, and like how the comfort that you feel, and how like you can be so loose and funny, and then when you get up there, like there's lights in your face, people staring at you, you're holding a mic, you're talking into that mic and your voice being projected. And he said that person that you were off stage, it takes so many years to bring that person onto the stage. would you, be
Mm.
like, oh, I don't have, like, because it's so scary. It's so, like, it does, like it has made me, like, many times go like, what am I doing? Like, because like
Mm.
when the set's not going well, I implode. And then, as someone who, as you know, I'm a very quiet talker. People don't know. I'm so glad I work in a profession where they mic me, because I would not be heard anywhere else. And, like, my voice will drop so low that, like, my mumbling turns to incoherent, and then people just don't hear the rest of the set. So it's definitely been like something I've, like, it's with me even filming the show. A lot of times I'll have days where I'm like, oh man, I'm feeling like so anxious and not sure of what I'm doing. And I've had to, at times, like, really, like, I've had moments where, like, that feeling was so strong, but they need me in front of the camera right now, that I would literally have to whisper to myself, I love you. It's going to be okay. You
Mhm.
got this. I love you. It's going to be okay. Like, almost just giving myself a pep talk.
Yeah, and I I wonder if, like, not to, like, be too reductive, but is imposter syndrome any part of that, or
Oh, yeah, a big part of that. Have you been reading my diaries? Because, yeah,
yeah,
it is.
actually.
I said, dear diary, imposter, and then I said, love GULED. Yeah, it's definitely a big part, because I, I, when we first got the show, I definitely felt a lot of guilt, about
Oh.
having the show, because I would think about all the people who started before me, who I think are so funny, and the feeling of, like, why me and not them.
Mhm.
And so that feeling was huge, where I would feel like, I'm not funny enough. I just I don't have that thing, that X factor. And so it was huge, and still is there, where, like, struggling to feel comfortable in my voice and how I do comedy, and be okay with the fact that there are many people who are way funnier than me, and be like, that's cool. That's just part of doing this thing. Is there always going to be people who are better at you than this, or in whatever technical ways, or literally, like, their jokes are tighter, or whatever it is. And as opposed to letting that, like, crush me, being like, why don't I try, after it crushes me for a little bit, to be inspired by what they did, and be like, that feeling I felt before that voice came in, where I was, like, enjoying, like, that's so cool, being like, can I try to get some of that feeling into the stuff I'm writing? Be like,
Mhm.
do this thing where I'm like, oh my god, this is really cool. I can't wait for people to see this, because if they feel even a fraction of, like, the joy I felt making this, then I think it's going to be good.
Mhm. And, like, you bring up joy, and so I'm gonna bring up thing number 3 now, which is, again, all
Ooh.
of these are tied together. So thing number 3 is what I call comedy families. I don't know. It's such a corny thing, but, like, so a bit of history. We, like, Guled and I were both in a sketch troupe called Fusion Comedy, and we would put up a new sketch show every month. Again, SoCap, shout out SoCap.
Shout out SoCap.
Thanks for giving that space. But what ended up happening was, we would all hang out on a Sunday to rehearse and pitch things. But then we also ended up just hanging out all the time. It was just this pure, like, comedy all the time. I don't even know what the closest thing that I had to that is, like, when your first year dorm, where you hang out with
Mm,
your dorm friends all the time. And to me, that was really, like, the first space. It was a an all POC sketch troupe. Um, and that was really the first space where I felt, oh, I could be myself, one, but two, there was, like, this commitment to a community, um that was awesome and beautiful. Like, we would have dinners together, and
yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
No,
So, oh, sorry, go on.
no, I was saying, I was gonna second that motion. Comedy families. All in favor say aye. I
I
I Motion passed. I would. Yeah, I don't think I would be in Tall Boys if it wasn't for Fusion, because I was very scared of, as you said earlier, of doing sketch. Franco, who was also in the troupe, was like, just come out. And I'm like, I don't have anything. I don't. He's like, what you know, like you said, you wanted to, you know, try this thing, like just come out and try it. And I remember coming and I was so scared. And like we'd sit around in a circle. I didn't know many of the people in the circle, and just going around and everyone saying their pitch in a circle. Like now, things that like I do on the show, still hate it, but I've gotten so much more comfortable that I'm not as scared when they call on my name. I'll be like, farts. What do you guys thoughts? That's all. That's the whole beginning and end of that pitch. Farts. You
That's
guys go to the
happened though.
sketch.
We've done a full sketch that's just farts. I believe it was Franco.
Oh yeah, was it?
It was the so I think the premise was someone was on a high line. Is that what it's called when someone's like line
Oh yes,
walking?
the tightrope walking. Yeah,
Tightrope, and this person just happened to eat a lot of beans.
that's
And
right.
so-
Yeah, yeah. And the commentator's talking about it, and they're just letting it rip.
And that was the best sketch. No,
It was
nothing
so
ever
fun.
topped that since.
Honestly, I do think that, like, even though sometimes people will be like, that's so lowbrow, I'm like, but it's so funny. People
Yeah.
farting, shitting, pissing. There's something about it that still makes me laugh. And that family was, yeah, very special, because yeah, like just like writing sketches in that way and performing in this space, and then having the hosts that we did come
Mhm.
through, other POC performers who have been in the game longer than us, to come and, like, you know, essentially donate their time, because like they were getting some money, but not like a ton of money, but a little bit, and they would come and perform, and they would give it their all. So it was like really cool to be like in these scenes of people who I'm like, oh my god, I've seen you on main stage, or I know you, I
Mhm.
saw you in that commercial, you know, and then being like, that's so cool, and then getting to like do a sketch with them, and how gracious they are with their, like, their time and their, like, their energy, and just also, so they didn't have to be complimentary, but they were, because they were like, they did enjoy the stuff that we were doing.
Like, and now you and I are in like Fusion. We both left for separate projects, and you and I are now in. Although we will always be family, GULED, you and I both
Yes,
know
yes.
that. But we are also in our own little separate like comedy families. Like you, obviously, with the Tall Boys, and me
True.
with the Titas. And for me, just like I have a lot of anxiety and imposter syndrome when it comes to comedy, but somehow being in a bubble makes it feel better and okay. And I
Mhm.
wonder, like, what you're, if, like, obviously from the outside looking in, it looks like Tall Boys is always having a blast, you know? And yeah, I just wanted to know, like, what's your, how's it been? Like, I think Tall Boys is coming on to its 4th year.
Like, yeah, the troop, third season for TV, and then as a troop, I think we've been a troop since, I want to say 2017. Yeah, so 4 years. Yeah, we're going to be 4 years. We just had our fourth. Oh no, we're gonna have 4th year anniversary. Oh, just passed actually. I think it's 25th of November. So that was
Oh.
our 4th year. It was just very recently. We didn't do anything. COVID, you took another one from us. Yeah, 4 years, and yeah, it's been a journey, because like we were such a new troop, learning how to work together,
Mhm.
and so we were like figuring out like our different styles, because we all have different sensibilities, uh just within the troop. Always, sometimes we like the same thing, but other times we just have different, like, you know, goals of like, oh, I want to do comedy that's like darker, I want to do comedy that's a bit more serious, I want to do comedy, you know, has, you know, some straight man in it, it's more grounded, whatever it is. Like sometimes there's moments where we all, like, you know, we drive on the same idea, but there's other times where we don't agree on it. And so I feel we were still at the infancy, or like very early in that, you know, that process of figuring out how to work with each other. And then the show happened, and then now more layers got added onto this, of trying to figure out our voices on top of the voices of the producers, on top of the voices of CBC. And yeah, I remember like the first season really just being like a deer in headlights, having all these people staring at me, people I did not know who they were, did not know what like something like a script coordinator was. So there was someone who was typing down everything I was saying. I was scared. I didn't know what they were typing down, who they were giving this stuff to. And so it's taken a very long time to now where we are in this third season to feel more comfortable. There's still the internal battles that like I'm having with my own imposter syndrome of moments where I feel like I'm not producing. And the second I'm not producing, I feel like emotionally, I feel like I'm like, well, you're not part of the show anymore. And you've always been the weakest link, and that narrative will start playing. And so there's moments where it's like, it's still, even this season where it was still like, oh man, I feel really terrible about myself. But I can also notice the growth happening, being like, oh, I feel also more confident. There's a part that's feeling more confident. There's a part that's still feeling terrible. It's getting smaller, or it's getting manageable, where I'm like, it's not feeling as overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. And I also know that you all are very close. So I wonder if that kind of stuff, or that closeness, like, does it make things feel better when things feel particularly bad? I don't know.
it does, yeah, for the most part, because it still is like when we're in the process, it's slowed down, but it still moves quite fast. And before we know it, like, we're filming the show, and already 3 months of the writer's room is done. So like, we'd still, anytime we'll make time to chat, where we'll just catch up, be like, hey, what's going on? How are we feeling? And do check-ins, but they're never as frequently as we'd like them to be, because we can go then like several months of us like we're talking while we're working on the show, and then not really as much outside of the show. And so, but when we are talking, it is nice, because like, everyone's expressing their feelings and where they are, and we try to find some sort of like working solutions. Like, so the hardest thing is like, whenever you hurt somebody, to like listen to someone tell you that you hurt them. That's still always, I'm always like, I want to, like, my instinct is still to want to apologize and make it right immediately, but being like, the hardest thing is just to listen and be like, that was me, I did say that, okay, yeah, no, like, I will start feeling like, well, that's I've done wrong, and this is no way to fix this, because it's like in the past, and so it's like, well, I can't go back in the past and fix it, but being like, listen, and then how to move forward, of being like, okay, well, next time I won't, I'll be aware of what's happening for me, and be like, sorry, I'm just feeling a little worn out right now, so I hope I don't come off as curt or anything like that, and just express whatever the thing is. And also, God, being okay with having more conversations.
Yeah.
We just have so many feelings as people, and just,
Yes.
it's going to be, I'd love quarterly check-ins, like how businesses do, like, what's the report? All right, so where are your emotions at? So the first quarter's been kind of rough, but it's got to be more frequent than that.
Yeah, I mean, so true about the checking in all the time. I think one of the things that I never would have expected about being in a collective that creates together is how much work it is to maintain, like, the dynamic, because without like a nice, friendly, safe space dynamic, it's hard to make anything, least of all comedy, because comedy is so vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a marriage. I don't know, it's a bit strange to like say it, but it does feel a little bit like a sketch troupe. You're kind of married together because you're tying your career ambitions, and therefore your what do you call it, your way of earning money and making a living together. It's tough.
No, it is, and it's like I think it's something we're getting better at with time, is learning how to like, there will be moments where we're like, yeah, we're very laid back, but there will be times where we'll get angry at each other, which is a very normal thing. Like, we'll get angry at each other, we'll snap at each other, and then it's the what you do after part is like what we're trying to figure out of like even like of as a troop being like, yeah, how do we deal with conflict interpersonally? How do we deal with conflict outside of the group? And how to, like, because uh, the challenge of like, there's so much going on for us individually, internally, that some of it, like, I'll share in this context. Other times you're like, I think this is for therapy or for a journal, like still learning where this feeling is best. Is it here? Is this where I need to express this? Or is it just wait for therapy or put it in a diary and be like, well, I just let it out, and it just
Mhm.
needed an outlet. And so learning sometimes being like, oh, maybe I revealed too much, or maybe I said something that like I could have just kept for therapy.
Everyone, this podcast is a big fan of therapy.
Yeah,
Everyone go get
huge.
therapy. I should do like I should like write a jingle for go to I don't know, I'm not gonna try now.
Therapy should be free.
Yeah. Well, a little bit more on that. Thing number 4, like talking about Tall Boys, the TV show. So before the TV show, whatever happened to Two Men?
Uh, we talked about it. I remember the producer saying, uh, I think they were more worried about like it might um be a bit too muddled. Of Tall Boys Two Men wouldn't work as well on TV. There was a little bit of fear of whether Boys to Men would we run into some legal issues
Right.
that were kind of doing a parody of their name.
Right.
Or pun, is that what it is? English is my second language. No, it's a language I speak. It's my first language. Everything else has moved to second or third. Um, so yeah, I think there was a bit of fear of legal ramifications, but I think the first thing was maybe drop the Two Men and just keep it Tall Boys for the TV show. It'll be cleaner.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
we're like, cool.
for those who I guess don't know what I'm talking about. Tall Boys was Tall Boys Two Men, but it wasn't even like two men. It was like the Roman numeral II men.
Yeah.
So I totally
Yeah.
understand where your producers are coming from. But also everyone referred to you colloquially as Tall Boys anyway.
Yeah, it's a long name. I get it. For I was never mad that it dropped, but it's nice because like whenever we perform, like most of the time, like I feel like we have Tall Boys for the show, and then Tall Boys to Men is our stage entity.
Oh, really?
It feels like that. Like I like it like the Tall Boys for the show, and then Tall Boys to Men
Uh,
is like what we do on stage. So being like, oh, like I like that it's not one and the same. It feels in my mind like a little different.
are you also doing a lot of live stage things?
We're slowly getting back into it because like everything kind of happened so quickly. Of went from first season, then a couple months off, in the second season we started writing for that, and we were trying to figure. And then life change is happening for all of us, so we are now slowly trying to get back out. We did a show last month. We're gonna do another show this month. We got one show planned for January. So it's been a while since we've done like a show a month, even. So it's nice to be out with the boys and find times in our schedule. Like I think the goal is at some point, like hopefully whenever this becomes endemic, to then figure out some way to tour. That would be fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God bless. Because, I mean, you guys are great on TV. But what people don't understand is that Tall Boys Live, because I remember watching your first show ever, Toronto Sketch Fest
Yeah.
2018, is it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, everyone who's seen you live understands what I'm talking about. And that's just like, and that's why we love live comedy. Everyone, go support your
Hell
live
yeah.
comedy. Check them
No,
out.
it's the energy
Your love.
of performing live is still like it's so different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of like there's definitely more freedom to it, of being like, oh, there's nobody we have to run this by. It's just us, and we'll do the silliest thing because it makes. And then also the feeling like I don't know if you felt this when you started comedy, that it was like kind of this underground world of like there was all these venues I'd walk by I did not know people were doing comedy in, and so almost like someone like the Matrix, I saw the real world. I'm like, oh shit, like there's this other part to it. Maybe not Matrix, maybe a Harry Potter going through the wall, being like, oh shit, it's a magical world, you know?
Yes.
So the sketch, I felt that same way, where I was like, I'm doing this, and then once I went to sketch, being like finding out there's this whole world of sketch comedians, and it felt like it reinvigorated me and gave me that same like love and excitement as when I first started comedy, because I'm watching people perform like such amazing sketches. And I remember just the highlight for me of sketches is actually hosting actually the show Dame Judi Dench with Shannon was on, was like my second or my last, I think my last volunteer one. And I remember being like, I love these guys, and I'm the one who's introducing them, and I get to also watch a free show too, being like, this is so cool. So I remember just being like, I'm so happy to like, just be a part of this thing.
That really hits a chord. You're right, like the Harry Potter kind of going into what is it? Oh my gosh, Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as much as like we'll make fun of the fact that, like live comedy, not a lot of money, right? But it's honestly a blast. Like you go to any comedy space, and I don't want to be like Cheers where everybody knows your name, but they do, and that's really beautiful. And everyone's just trying to make just this community of people trying to make each other laugh. And most of the time you do it because you love it. You will perform to like a room of like 3 people, and you still like give it your all. It's just like amazing.
It's so fun too, because like like seeing what people could create on stage was just always so like, I was like, oh, I never thought like, like just being like, oh, the stage you can create, people will follow you, so your imagination can be anything. That if you say like you're opening a door and all these glasses are falling, that people believe it because you got sound effects and a light cue, and it's like, oh, that's so like, it's so funny. I'm laughing, and it's just at my imagination. I'm laughing at my imagination that now the performers have like just said, oh, imagine glasses shattering. Here's the sounds. Here's the light, and I'm standing there and reacting. So being like, that's so cool.
I really, honestly, anyone listening to this that hasn't gone out and seen live comedy, do it. Do it. People are really out there just to make you laugh and to entertain you. And Toronto is spoiled for live comedians. Like there are people populating like places like Comedy Bar who are huge. Small or huge, either way. Like, it's a great time.
It is, yeah. It's both really cool, and at times it makes me sad of like wishing the industry was treated comedians and entertainers better, of being like, I do like that I can be on the same shows as people who have been doing this for like 10 years longer than I have. But sometimes I'm like, why am I on the same show as someone who's been doing 10 years longer than I have? Like, I mean, we can be on the same shows, but why are we on the same shows so often?
Yes. Well, like we're already talking about like a lot of comedy. So I'm just going to jump into thing number 5, which is again, more comedy. Did I miss a thing? Was that thing number 4? No,
I clicked 4 by accident.
All right. Thing number 5. And again, it's more of the same. Like I remember when we started hanging out, I had never met anyone who loved comedy so much. And like you and Franco, like the way you used to talk about comedy used to blow my mind. Like you talk about comedy like most people talk about sports, but you also talk about sports.
That was more Franco who I would like it's so weird because like I do know a little bit about basketball. I've played it a bunch. I kind of know some of the bigger players that are performing, but it's a lot of just like sound bites from me. It's like, yeah, they're not doing that well. Oh, they are. Yeah, it's the last time I watched it, they weren't doing that well. I save face by just like constantly pivoting, you know. So don't ask me for my opinion on any particular team, but I still feel that way, which is like it's to me these are my athletes, you know, being like
Yeah.
seeing other people who are at the top of their game pulling off like amazing feats, you know. So watching shows, animated or live action, and being like, oh my god, that's so good. That's like that's so good. Like, how did you come up with that? You know,
Well,
lines that are like so perfect. You know.
let's nerd out a little bit. Like, I know you have these in your back pocket. What's like an amazing feat, like, of comedy to you?
For me of late, it's the big show Succession, man. I've been laughing so
Yes.
hard at that show. So hard at that show, you know. It's so like so many like great acting, but just like to me it's a comedy, you know. Like it's so funny. Like the story about the business feels like the third or fourth important thing on that show. Like they talk about it so much, but it feels like such a background thing. They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
who cares? Yeah, we'll figure it out. What's going on with YouTube? Well, why are you guys making fun of each other? You know?
I don't understand. It's Shakespearean sometimes, though. Like the
Yeah,
way they talk, it's like this weird business, political, like jargon that I don't understand. But like because they're good actors, like Shakespeare, which I also don't understand. I get it. I
yeah.
get.
I mean, I've agreed every time when someone says it's Shakespearean because as someone who hasn't read much Shakespeare, I feel out of my depth. I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. That dude is crazy, man. This does sound like he would do it. You know, it's like, yeah, people are like it's King Lear. Oh, totally King Lear. Such a King Lear thing to do. You know, he's a king. He's leering a lot. I think is what was going on.
That's exactly it.
Oh, is that what it? Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Sick.
totally. He's a
I
king.
guess.
He
I guess.
leers.
He leered. I love it. I love. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that show. It's like makes me laugh so hard. And then also like I love people who like blow my mind in terms of like I never thought to do this. Like Julio Torres's last special on HBO. I think Shapes or something like that, or Shapes of Things, or I can't remember what it was, but it was a whole sketch show not sketch show, but a whole stand-up routine with little like vignettes in between, like these little like asides. But like he was dressed in some amazing outfit that was shimmering, and he had like this conveyor belt of items come, and he had like little one-off jokes or stories about like this little you know commemorative the sticker, this little cactus, you know, and he gave everything like a personality and like it was so fun, and I was like I don't think of anyone else who I can't think of anyone else who's doing this. I've never seen this before, and being like that is like it makes me go like I don't want to do what I don't want to do what he's doing because he's already doing that very well, but I'm like how do I tap into that this other plane, you know, of being like that is so like that's amazing in my mind. Being like, how do you even try? Like, I don't even know how you come about that idea. You know?
So, like, as a comedy connoisseur, right? Like, what is really important for you in comedy? Like, what is a thing that Succession hits, or a live performer hits that like is just like hit, like makes you feel like, yeah, damn, like that was good stuff.
A lot of times, like for live shows, it's for me, it's like just the honest thing. Like the things that have made me laugh the hardest and like watching an improv show have been things that like this was not supposed to be a funny line. It's just a character reacting in the moment, but it was so funny and constant. I'm thinking of even like a show, improv show I was doing last weekend where the characters was just disrespecting their mom the whole time. And the other person in the scene is like, dude, actually, I think your mom's really cool. And they kept disrespecting. And then one of the lines to the disrespect is like, she doesn't understand, man. She's a bitch who works from home. And then laugh because just the phrase of "she's a bitch who works from home" is one of the improvisers saying this about her mom and being like, what an insult that like only makes sense in this context of this timeline that we're currently living when people work from home so much. So be like, she doesn't get it, she just works from home, like she's not in the real world. Like I was just making my own connections, and that makes me really laugh. And shows like Succession, it's definitely has to be like the lines are written funny, but it's all in the delivery of like these characters are like they're insulting each other, or they're delivering this line that like on paper I'm sure was like was still hilarious, but being like, oh man, you really gave it a different life in the way you're stuttering through it, or the confidence which you're saying this insult that I normally wouldn't find funny.
Is it like, well, I guess for live, and it's funny because like there's like that, there is such a, it's a different medium, but like, I guess for live, like it's really just being present, I think, is what I'm hearing. And it's just like this, especially improv too, because like, you know, everything's being made up on the spot and it's never gonna happen again. It's like everyone's in this bubble for this specific time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mean, yeah, like some of my favorite live performances, like I can't remember much of the show, like someone like Rory Scovel, who does a lot of like improvised comedy in a stand-up routine, but there's also a lot of it that is like pre-written, or maybe it was at one point improv but now he's doing it again, but he does it in such a way where like it still feels like he's doing it for the first time. Like there's a certain silliness or just like off the cuff nature of the way he's doing it, like doing a whole set where like, you know, he asks for the lights to be turned off and he's just talking to Mike, and we're all just like giggling in the dark at this theater and being like, this is so silly, this is so fun. I feel like I'm having an experience that is like so cool that like if I told someone about it, they're like, turn off the lights, that's weird. Like you know, you understand. So it was so funny. Then I don't even remember what he was saying, but he was just like commenting, and like he was painting pictures, like being like, all right, picture this, you're in this blah blah blah, and you know, like he's setting up scenarios, and we're just like dying, but being like, I leave this and I can't recreate this moment. I just know that I experienced something. All I can say is like, if you get a chance to see him, please go see him, you know?
Yeah, go watch comedy. It'll make you feel things.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Guled will probably be in the back row.
Yeah. I will be.
But you've loved Rory Scovel for a while. Like I know we've talked about Rory before. Do you find like your comedy tastes have changed at all? You know, in the last, you know, having gone from like a new troupe and now being like, okay, like this is your full-time well, it was like your full-time gig before, but like on TV, do you know what I mean?
Before it was like, no, you were right, it wasn't my full-time gig. It was it was something I was putting sometimes full-time hours into, but getting paid. Like I should have taken this to like the employment boards or something like that. But like, so I did like 10 shows and got 2 beer tickets. Is that right? What's the math on that?
Full-time gig.
But yeah, I feel like it's changed a little bit in that like I'm very interested now about like like a show like Succession. Like these are all such great performances, you know, like every time I watch something, like that's so like there's so many layers to these, like the richness of like the same character can make me laugh at one moment, the next moment I'm feeling bad for them, like, oh, this person's insecure, or like there's a sadness that they're carrying, and being like watching that person go between these things and really like being like, oh, now I'm so that my taste has changed a little bit of being like, it's not just the joke, but it's like the performance is so big. So like, yeah, like wanting to take acting class to like figure that part out, you know, be like, how do I use this as another tool in my sets, you know, of being like really like give like a very great performance and then just let the comedy happen as it would. But Roy Scovel has still he hasn't been moved from that spot of like just one of my favorite comics to watch. And
Yes.
seeing him like perform is still like I watched the set of his that he filmed 3 years ago but released now, of he challenged himself for a whole week to improvise every single set, to just like come in with no like really thought out material, just like maybe something he noticed early in the day, but just like go with that freedom. And seeing someone who's been doing it for that long still talk about the same, like, oh, like I felt myself get scared, and I bailed on this thing because I just didn't trust where it was going,
Yeah.
and be like, oh wow, that's still to be like, that's exciting. I'd be like, oh, someone I love watching so much is still trying to figure, or like maybe it's something you don't figure out. You have come to different understandings over time.
Yeah. When you said like the performance as well is now like very important and rich, and like that brings to mind like a thought that's kind of recurring for me right now is like how involved a craft comedy is. And I think the more you're into it, like you don't realize how detailed, like some of the best in the business, like you don't even realize like the detail that they put into it, like how intentional every moment is, until you're like smart enough to be like, oh man, like nothing is, well, sometimes it's an accident and a discovery, and that's beautiful, but man, people work this material, like
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
is well loved.
Yeah, truly. And it's really cool to witness, like seeing someone like do a joke for the first time and then watching it weeks later, and or even months later, and seeing that joke have such a different feel to it. It's more polished. There's they're more certain, but they're still trying to give off the air that it's a very relaxed telling of this joke, but being like, oh, you've done this at this point maybe 50 times, but every pause, word choices, being like, I think Subway sounds better than Quiznos, like just all these little things being like, okay, yeah, no, I follow, and then all of it when it comes together is like such a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. I could nerd out about comedy with you all day, every day, but we're at the end of our big 5 things, but we want to know more about you, Guled, always
Yeah,
and
yes.
forever. Uh, okay, so we'll do like a soup.
A soup,
A
yeah, I don't
lightning
mind. What is
round.
it? Butternut squash?
We'll
What are
do
we
a soup,
talking?
a lightning round, just to like know a bit more about Guled before we say goodbye. So,
Beautiful.
okay, lightning round, Guled. Super salad.
Soup.
Best pizza.
Bitondos.
Where?
Bitondos, best slice is Bitondos. If we're talking fast food, Domino's.
Nice. What are you watching these days?
I'm watching Succession and season 5 Insecure.
And I stole this one from like an interview, and I've asked this before, but I love it. Like, what do you do on days when you're not feeling confident?
Ooh, I will try to meditate. If I don't feel like in the mood to meditate, I will sometimes just try to like watch something I enjoy, and just like, and maybe at times give myself a break. Be like, let's not force this. If it's really not working, just relax, and then try it again tomorrow.
That's beautiful. And last but not least, question. Oh my gosh, weird. What's next? Like, what else are you up to these days?
Nothing much. I've never been in this position where I have both time and resource on my hands to do whatever I want, and so it's both exciting and scary. And I'm trying to be like, all right, let's, instead of following the fear telling me all the things I shouldn't be doing, be like, all right, what's making me really smile or laugh, or what's something that's like following the love, like I did earlier in comedy, of like, I didn't know where this was going, I'm just going to do it anyways, being like, all right, let's try that for whatever I want to do next, whether it's acting or writing something else.
I love that so much. Follow the love in comedy. And you know what? I think that is a great place to end this beautiful conversation. Thank you so much, Guled, for joining me for 5 Things.
Thank you for having me. Love you. Love you, Shannon.
Yeah, we're heart. So again, thank you again. Thanks for joining us for 5 Things at Bad Dog Comedy. Please check out more of Guled stuff. Tall Boy Season 3 is coming up January 25th. And if you haven't if you need to catch up, Season 1 and Season 2 are on CBC Gem. You might just recognize Hair Flip, a cute little 5 Things host on there. And if you haven't yet, please hit follow or subscribe to this channel to keep up to date on all of the cool programming Bad Dog has coming your way. Members of the Tall Boys are always performing on any of these shows, so you might catch them all on YouTube. And if you'd like to support the show, consider donating to www.baddogtheater.com/5things. A big shout out to Shannon, who is our tech today. Again, thank you for joining us. I've been Alia Rasul, and in the words of my people, ingat. Take care and have a great night.